Hello, hello, You-est You listeners. I am so happy you're here. I'm really grateful to be in your ear right now and for you to be part of this really beautiful interview. I think you're going to really want to make sure you have a place to take some notes and reflect upon any part of this that really speaks to you. I'm so excited about my guest today. My beautiful dear cousin, Sarah Waldbaum introduced me to Elena a few years ago, and I felt like I was meeting a soul sister. And she is just incredible and has so much wisdom to share, and I can't wait to share her with you. So let me tell you a little bit about Elena before you meet her. Co-author of An Unsinkable Soul, From Broken to Brilliant with Self-Care, and upcoming book release, The 6 False Agreements Women Make, Rewrite Old Stories, Learn to Trust Your Intuition, and Stop Living Life Based on Other People's Limitations. Elena Lipson has been published in Tiny Buddha, The Huffington Post, Medium, Business Rocks Magazine, Business Heroine Magazine, and was a featured self-care expert on the Mel Robbins TV show in spring of 2020. Elena is a podcast host, transformational speaker, and founder of the top-rated podcast, Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings. I love that. After a decade of hustle, burnout, and developing an autoimmune disease, Elena dedicated herself to helping others to press the pause button, tame their inner gremlin, and finally take care of themselves first. Amen to that. Elena believes that self-care is the best gift you can give to those you love. Elena Lipson has lived in Russia, New York City, California, and happily today enjoys the green trees and fresh air of the Pacific Northwest with her husband of nearly 20 years and their son and sweet pup. All right, Elena, we have a lot to dive into. I'm so honored to have you here. I love what you're teaching and stand for. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I think we connected, I think it must have been years ago, but as always, everything happens in divine timing. So I think we're meeting at, the perfect time again, actually, officially, and get to share each other's lives and stories and work. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think there's so much of what you're doing. I'm just so in alignment with, and what I've noticed for me, it's a real rewiring to learn to put yourself first. Can you share with us, because my sense is having an autoimmune disease, something was going on with you, where I'm guessing you didn't do that. Can you maybe share a little bit of why this is such an important topic to you?
Yeah, I just don't think anyone teaches us how to take care of ourselves on the mind, body, and soul levels. For me, it was like every other teacher and every other person who's out there with a mission to change the way something is, right? So I think for me, the most important, aspect of the teaching that I learned was through personal experience. Like you said, it was my own personal experience with autoimmune disease that led me to even think about what the heck self-care meant to me and what it was. And, it's so funny. I think life gives you all these little breadcrumbs, right? So when I first became a coach 20 years ago, and I was also a corporate trainer in the corporate world at the same time, because this is kind of where the story begins. I don't do just one thing. I do many things all at the same time. It's in my personality. It's how I function. It's my human design. It's my Gemini nature, right? I like to do multiple things. I really get a lot out of that. However, no one teaches you how to also put yourself on that to-do list and how to really slow down enough to build up the energy physically, emotionally, mentally to do all the things. You just feel like you have to hustle and do it. And let me just say, I do believe there's a time in your life, like your 20s, where you probably do have the energy to do all the things and maybe even not sleep very much. And I do know women in their 20s now who I'm related to and are like that. And I look at it and I think, are you okay? Like I'm looking at it through my lens of, are you okay? So as someone I wasn't born here, as you read in my bio, I was born in Russia. We came to the US when I was about 6 years old. And so I was very much in that immigrant mentality. You work, there's no time to examine your feelings. No one's sitting down and asking you how you feel about anything. Truly, you just do it. You just work, you go to school, you do your homework, you do the things, you help around the house, you just do it. So I never questioned how I felt while I was doing it. I was just doing it. I was into personal development, starting with the Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins. I had all the cassettes, the Power Hour cassettes, because it was more about doing things and getting things done versus being a certain way, right? So I graduated high school early. I went to college when I was way too young, I think, to even figure out what the heck I wanted to do. I was working full time, paying my way through college, getting all the loans. I was working full time, like the second couple, I think the third and fourth year, I was actually working full time while I was going to college, paying rent, doing all the things, right? I just kind of followed the track that you're supposed to follow, right? I got my job. I had this vision of wearing a suit and working in a beautiful, shiny building in the city when I lived in New York. And I did that. I got the job. Somewhere along the way, I decided I would go to California after my sister moved there. And I thought, you know what, I'm kind of tired of the snowstorm. So I moved there, and nothing really changed about my mode of working. I got a job right away, was working a lot. I started a business again at the same time as I was in the corporate world. And for like a decade, I was in that mode of like working, hustling, making money. When things changed for me, the moments that really started to change for me was I was actually experiencing symptoms of being sick for probably from about 25 to 30.
Wow.
But I didn't know what I was experiencing. And I hear that a lot. Like your body starts talking to you every about 3 to 4 months. I would have what I labeled myself the seasonal flu. Like, could you imagine, like every 3 or 4 months, I would just be out. Like I would just get sick. My throat would, like my tonsils would hurt. I would be in bed with a fever. Like it was just a regular rhythm. And I didn't really have the words burned out or overwhelmed or adrenal fatigue. I didn't have any of those words in my vocabulary. I just thought I was sick, and I would like get up and do it all over again. And throw in friends and throw in family and throw in working out and throw in everything else besides, right? So there's so much to balance. For me, it really came to a head when I got pregnant. I worked right up until like literally the week before I gave birth. And then I started a business when my son was 6 months old, an online business. And we had just moved to Washington State. So my family was back in California. I started a business, had a baby, moved all at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
And I started experiencing really weird additional symptoms, like physical pain in my belly and like tired to the point that was beyond just being a new mom, like where I could just take a nap pretty much any time. The brain fogginess, all the stuff, right? And so this went on for like 2 or 3 years. When my son was about 2 or 3, I thought, I think I really need to figure this out. Like something's going on with me that feels not right. I'm in my early 30s, but I feel like I'm falling completely apart. So I went to a doctor who was a traditional Western doctor. I'm not saying anything negative at all about Western medicine. I think it's amazing in appropriate situations. In this particular situation, I was recommended to start taking antidepressants for the pain I was feeling in my belly. So he literally told me, like, I think you're just really sensitive to pain. I'm like, isn't everyone sensitive to pain?
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm experiencing pain. Yeah. So that was a big no. Just intuitively, I felt like this is not going to happen. I mean, if I do need antidepressants at some point, if I really need them, I'm not anti-taking them, but as a first step solution to what doesn't seem connected to me was no. So I went to a naturopath for the first time ever, and she asked me really strange questions. Like, tell me about your diet. What kind of support do you have in your life? Do you sleep well? I'm like, okay, these are great questions, but what do they have to do with the pain in my belly and the exhaustion that I'm feeling? And so that was my first insight into self-care and what was happening inside my inner world and what I was experiencing in my body. So that really started the journey. And through that whole process, I cleaned up my diet, which was not easy to do back then because there was not that much available that was gluten-free and dairy-free. It was pretty disgusting. So now it's much, much better. I've learned how to navigate my diet really well. And the really cool thing that happened was I found my way back to yoga, and I found my way back to this one studio where this amazing like psychologist, yoga teacher was teaching this, daily class. And as I started doing the yoga, I started actually crying like in the room. And what I started realizing was I had all these pent up, unexpressed emotions. I had just things I wasn't looking at. I was just so busy for so long that I never really stopped. I mean, I journaled and I did other things, but not to the depth of like transformational I only stop myself at a certain point, you know. And then I decided to go and take yoga teacher training. She really focused quite a bit on self-care from the inner perspective and the outer perspective. And I started experiencing these huge realizations and revelations and feeling like I was showing up as the mom I wanted to be, and I was being more honest in my relationship with my husband and with myself. It was really quite a transformational leap of faith actually in that place. Because it didn't make sense. I was investing in myself in this way. Like I thought, you know, am I going to spend money on self-care? Right. It was like a new way of seeing things. So that was a huge aspect that I hear women talk about. Like they'll easily spend money on other things, but to really spend money on themselves, like it had to be some return on investment. It had to be like, they had to be in real pain, right, to do that. So through that journey, I rekindled my fire for coaching and for starting a business, because I knew I didn't want to go back to corporate, because I don't like people controlling my schedule. I wanted to be present for my son and my family. And that's how the self-care coaching business was born. And I started creating programs. I started creating meditations and movement practices. And now it's been 6 years since I've been running this divine self-care circle of women who I created. What the way people know they need it is they come back home to themselves. And home is an acronym for H is any health issues. So usually there's some kind of diagnosis or some kind of wake up call in their health. O is for overwhelm, like life is just too much right now. And I really need to figure out how to write myself back into my life. And I finally see that I need to do it. The M stands for motherhood. I do believe motherhood is a wake-up call for a lot of people to say, wait a minute, not only am I now not taking care of myself, but I have to model this. And I have to teach another human being how to be human, right? So it really starts those questioning for some women, not for everyone, but it does for a lot of us. And then E is entrepreneurial. I do believe deciding to start your own thing is a very spiritual experience, and it can bring up all of your limitations, all of your old ideas, and trying to figure out how to combine all those things, home, health, overwhelm, motherhood, entrepreneurship, is a freaking journey, right? So that's how people come in. That's how women come into the circle. And then we basically help you simplify your life systems and business systems. And it's really all based on all this work that I did and I learned, and I had amazing teachers and mentors and still do. And so my goal is to help you to declutter that inner world and also create some inner clarity and to really own your life purpose and to make yourself a priority again. And to clear, like I said in the bio, like let's get rid of those inner gremlins of old stories and how things should be, and really reclaim you and your voice, and to stand up for yourself and what you want. And ironically, people think that it's going to create conflict in their life and relationships, and it can. But it's so much more powerful to be present and honest and authentic in your relationships versus be some version of yourself to appease what you think the other person wants, which is never going to end well anyway. It always ends in some, realization, like, wait a minute, who am I now? What was I doing? We talk a lot in the circle about self-betrayal and how we do things to avoid conflict, how we do things because we think it's what the other person wants. And we just don't get taught to be direct, but compassionate, to be clear, but not confrontational in a way that feels like you have to fight for yourself, which we sometimes do. And that's okay too. And it's okay. It's actually a good thing to fight for your life and what you want. So that's my story. There's a lot more pieces, I'm sure, along the way, motherhood and relationships and all the things. But I'm so passionate about women living life on their own terms and helping you to just decide. It's okay for me to want what I want. It's okay for me to need what I need. And I don't have to be sick in order to find self-care. But sometimes that's the route that we take. Right? So, yeah.
I love that. It's really powerful what you just said. In fact, the goal is not, to do this before there's a breakdown in your body. Yeah. Like what you went through, and I actually relate to your story. It's like, no, start doing this now before that happens.
like preventative wellness care, right? That's the
Exactly.
goal. But
Yeah.
and I do being like just a student of psychology and human behavior, I understand like sometimes we aren't
Yeah.
motivated to change until something's painful. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be at death's door. It could be watching someone close to you experience something. It could be hearing us talk about it and say,
Yeah.
oh, that's what I'm feeling that. Like I'm right on the early stages of that. Or
Yeah.
wow, I didn't realize that maybe self-care was the answer. And again, when I teach self-care, yes, it's bubble baths and all the physical things you want. Those are great and beautiful and wonderful and feel great. But you can't go from like confused and overwhelmed taking a bubble bath and feeling better. It just doesn't work.
That's
There
right.
have to be some other tools along the way as well, right? The
Yes.
bubble bath is a great energy clearing practice. It's a great grounding practice. It's a great pleasure practice.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of steps in between.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because my just I can imagine those listening are like, okay, I'm in. I would like to have more clarity and calm and ease and feel connected to myself. I love the acronym for coming home to yourself. What are some tools that you teach around self-care in addition to the bubble baths, but that anyone listening could apply, could practice? Like, what are the ones you see are really powerful?
The main thing that I let people start with, because you get such a quick transformative feeling from it, is what I
Yeah.
call the magic morning practice or habit. I used to call it practice. Now I call it habit because I
Yeah.
want you to see it as something that, like everything you don't do and everything you do in your life is a habit. And if
Yeah.
well, you can start seeing it that way, you can start shifting your habit to doing something else. And it actually doesn't even take that long to create a new habit.
Right.
So, and I'm happy that this is the free gift that I've been giving for over a decade because
Yeah.
like thousands of people have gone through it and they love it. And I teach it in more depth in my circle, but I give you the basics of it. So it's very simple. It's 3 steps to activate your mind, your body, and your soul. And it's within the first hour or 2 in the morning. I don't have these rules like you got to wake up at 5:45. You have to be, facing east to direct the sunlight to your soul. Like I don't have any of those rules.
That's
It's
awesome.
very, the work that I do, there's definitely woo woven in, like for sure, but it doesn't have to be. If you're not someone who's like
Yeah.
into all the woo stuff, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think life is woo, like everything's magical to me, right? But you don't have to see life my way in order to
Yeah.
benefit from this. So
Yeah.
within the first hour of the day, I invite you to have that intention to even start the night before, because this is where a lot of people like don't get it right. And I don't say right or wrong very often, but if you're staying up until 1 in the morning, it's going to be very difficult to be motivated to have any kind of practice. And sleep is such a huge aspect of wellness.
Yeah.
That we can go into a whole separate podcast about sleep as self-care and how it rewires and replenishes and all the good things. So
Yeah.
when you wake up in the morning, and it's just like working out. If you want to, like Mel Robbins says, I do follow her and I was on her show and I love what she says, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. You have to prep for it the night before. You have to lay out your workout clothes. So just like that, lay out your journal, have 2 pens because I have run out of more pens than I care to think. So I have a whole like little collection of pens near my bed. So the first thing you do is activate your mind. And this practice came from me starting a practice by Julia Cameron, who is author of The Artist's Way. I started doing that practice and she gears primarily towards creatives who want to like write and create something, but I think it's for everyone.
Yeah.
If you haven't read The Art, that's just actually the morning pages are just one of the practices of many in her book. So if you like that, just, it's a really beautiful book to
amazing book.
explore.
Yeah.
Like the artist date and all the things. Like there's so many great practices that I've sort of like adapted to self-care. Not all of them, just a few of them. But anyway, so you wake up and the first thing you want to do is just understand that when you wake up, your ego mind is the one that's awake. It's like that, the amygdala lizard brain fight or flight kind of. That's why so many people wake up with negative thoughts running through their head right away. It's because your prefrontal lobe is not quite awake yet. So if you've ever woken up at 3 or 4 in the morning and you're like, what did I just do? All the fears come up. I break into a sweat. It's because your logical, like everything's gonna be okay mind is asleep. It's your lizard brain that's awake. And so that's who you're interacting with. So if you don't have awareness of that, you can really get pretty, anxiety ridden in the middle of the night. The same thing happens in the morning. When you wake up, you have all these thoughts running through your head. And if you choose to believe them and not do anything about them, that's gonna set the tone for your day. right?
Yeah.
If you choose to say, okay, I hear that, I'm going to take a few minutes to just write them down. They're not going to, like, just addressing your fears. I think a lot of people don't write their fears down because they think it's going to somehow, like, the law of attraction has made it that people don't even want to engage with their fears because they think it's going to somehow block their abundance.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually totally opposite. I think you give it space, you look at it and you say, yes, and I see you, and this is what I choose, right? You choose something different. So I call it clearing the cobwebs.
Mm-hmm.
You just start writing them down. You could write your dreams, you can write your thoughts, and then you go into writing some really positive affirmations for yourself. Some people get stuck in this part too because they don't feel the affirmations yet, so they feel like it's lying. So you can just write it in a way that says, I am someone who is working on being positive. I am someone who is making healthier choices in many areas of my life. You know, you can start it, like, just be really honest. There's no formula here that's going to give you like the right combination. It just has to feel aligned for you. You can also start writing a vision that you have. Like, I'm huge. One of the things I teach to my clients in the circle is vision writing. And I have a very specific process that I go through, which I'm not going to teach here, but you can start tapping into that a little bit. Even just setting your intention for the day. Today, I choose to see beauty. Today, I choose to show up with love. Today, I choose to be present for the people in my life. Like, if you can just be intentional, that can start having an effect. So that's number one. Number two is something for your body. I'm a dancer, so I choose to dance, but I also sometimes do yoga stretches. I do something, this is separate from like my quote unquote workout. It's something to what I call igniting your inner pilot light, something to bring the heat. In the Ayurvedic principles, there's this thing called Agni. It's the inner fire. And if you just spend 1 or 2 minutes stretching or moving or putting on your favorite song and just dancing, you'll feel that little bit of heat building up in your chest, and you'll start to awaken your inner energetic self, right? And so you'll start to see things differently. This is the biggest ask. If you could do one thing, do this. Literally, like, if I only have time to do one thing, do this, because movement and emotion get stuck in your body if you don't move it enough. So if you can just move your body, and you don't have to be like at any fitness level or weight level or anything, you can do it in your bed. I could do chair dancing. Like, you can just move the way you want to move, but close your eyes, get into it, really feel it. So that's number two. And number three is something to connect you to whatever your version of divine is, whether it's pulling a tarot card and getting guidance, whether it's saying a prayer from your childhood, whether it is just like closing your eyes, putting your hand on your heart and saying, you know, thank you for everything that's coming my way today. I appreciate this moment. I appreciate what's already coming to me. And thank you, please guide me. Like, whatever version of that is. So it's mind, body, and soul. And again, I always say, if you only have 3 minutes, you can easily do 1 minute of writing, 1 minute of dance, and 1 minute of just to close your eyes and say thank you to whatever, right? To nature, to look out at the sun. I mean, I've had women in my life tell me, she's like, it was so hard to sit there for 60 seconds and just breathe, but I felt so transformed. How could that happen? I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, how often do you just get quiet and close your eyes? She's like, I really do. And so that can just start the journey to explore for yourself. So that's the Magic Morning Habit. It's super transformative. It is so easy to do. And sometimes I do it right when I wake up, and sometimes I do it like after, you know, if I have to get my son ready for something, I'll do it later. So again, there's no rule that you have to do it at a certain time. But I will say this, you can experiment for yourself. There's something about the morning energy, that sunrise energy, that is very powerful. So if you can capture it within those first few morning hours, like say before 10 or before 11, before noon even, right? If you can capture that, it will set a tone for your day. I love to say the way you start your day is the way you show up in your world. So just have that little bit of intentional time to just dial it up, to set the dial, set that inner compass to where you want to go, right? Because if you don't know where you want to go, it's like walking into a restaurant and saying, bring me food. You're going to get food, but are you going to get what you want? Right? Versus saying like, good morning world, I am here. And today I choose to see peace. Today I choose to show up. Today I choose to do one thing to move the needle in my business. And that one thing is sending an email or writing a blog post. Like you can get super intentional. You know, you can do this for your business too. So I love the practice. I do it. I've taught it. I teach it live at retreats. And it's the thing that people, again, it's the simplest thing. It's the free thing that I give to everyone. And it's, I think it's the most transformative aspect because it starts to give you an insight into what an intentional presence in your own life can actually do for you.
I love that intentional presence. Yeah. It also feels to me like, and I've had to train myself and I'm not fully there. It's very easy to get up, take your phone, start looking at your emails, what to do. I mean, seriously, this is it's no joke. I'm working on this myself because that addiction to, what'd you say? Yeah. You get it.
Me too. Well, yeah, because especially, and again, this is it's within the workbook is to suggest that you avoid social media for the first hour.
Yeah.
But during this time, especially this year, where things have been so volatile and changing day to day to day, there's a part of us that's almost addicted to that, you know, that rush of checking, like, and social media, they know that, right? The powers that be know that. They know how addicted we can be. So for myself, because I, for real, was like last couple of months was waking up to it. I'm like, what am I even doing right now? This is not how I want to be. And I found myself feeling very distracted.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't able to, I'm telling you, Julie, like I couldn't find the words, the things I wanted to say. I was feeling foggy. It was my nervous system was overactive, right? That's what's happening. And nobody talks about nervous systems, but this is actually a really powerful aspect of self-care is to nourish your nervous system. So I sat down and I gave myself this journal prompt that I love, and it's on my window here, a little notepad. It says, my soul is asking me to.
Oh, I love that.
And I just started writing, and all of a sudden, and then I wrote like, okay, so now what are you going to do about it? And the answer came so clear. It was remove the apps from your phone. It's like, oh my goodness, how can I remove the apps from my phone? But then I thought, just do it before you overthink it. And I did it. And I removed the email, I removed Facebook. And it's been almost a week. And I can tell you, like, my creativity is back. My joy is back. I'm going to sleep without checking it. I'm waking up without checking it. I still have it on my computer, but then I have to walk over to it intentionally and open it. I'm not just refreshing, like, right? We're all doing that, right? So it's been so good. If you can give yourself, I know it's very difficult to think about disconnecting from the umbilical cord of information, but I guarantee you, you're going to get something else in its place.
That is powerful ninja, like that is mastery level. No, and I love this question of asking what, you know, my soul is asking me to, and then listening and seeing what that is. And what I found, and I love the practice, you know, there's a lot of different practices you can do. What I love about yours is it actually, to me, energetically, you're aligning a little bit more with that, you know, with the, we have feminine and masculine energy. There's both, but it's a little bit more of the, like, there's a little more feminine in there than I think I'm normally starting out with. And I bet anyone who's listening, you know, usually I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? Check this. Like I get into doing mode, unless I'm, you know, intentional. And I love this, like, no, before you, it's kind of also saying it matters and I matter and my time matters. And this is going to set the tone for the whole day. And props to you for taking off your apps like that. Seriously, as a business owner too, I'm like, my brain just went to like, how is that going to work? But I don't know. I'm going to ask myself because I might do the same. I think I can feel, even just, we got to do a beautiful session yesterday together with your community and I can feel your presence. And so that's a really powerful tool.
It was so transformational. And I'm saying it from a place of being in it and doing it. And I know it sounds really easy when someone's doing something to say like, it's so easy to do it. It's not easy to do it. I promise you. But then I asked myself like, okay, what could I possibly need to see in an email or Facebook in the first hour of my day that's going to benefit me?
Yeah.
Like, why do I need to see it first thing in the morning? And I noticed that maybe even track it as an experiment. Try it like 2 days of waking up to your phone, which you're probably doing right now. So that's the easy part. But just notice, just have the awareness. How is my mood? Was I motivated? Did I feel like I was someone who can make a difference in my life or the world? Or did I go into apathy and depression? Did I go into like, well, I can't do anything anyway? Or
Yeah.
did I go into like a spiral of depression that I've been, and this is an aspect I really don't talk about often.
Yeah.
But I have spiraled into a depression several times in my life, and it was very situational. So I'm very grateful that it's not a chemical thing that I can't sort of get out of. It's situation. So like when I'm in a situation that starts to, like talking like divorce and death level, like I have gone to that place. What I've learned that's so, so important for me and for coming home to yourself is that I know chemically that I need to do the morning practice in some way. I need to move my body every day. I need to hydrate. I need to sleep, because those are the precursors to getting on the upswing of wellness. I know dear friends and family members who are on antidepressants, and it's really helped them. I don't have that chemical combination in my brain where I can't act my way out of it. I know I can, but I also know for me it's a slippery slope to go into it. And all it takes is a few days of not doing the things that I do, or waking up with the news, because the news is not here to elevate you.
No.
Period. The news is here for headlines, for fanatical, it has to get your attention somehow, right? So the headlines are going to be terrible, and the news is even worse. They're not out there looking for good news. There are a few actually cool channels that are, but you have to go find them. So you just, this, and I'm not telling people to not read the news. I'm not telling people to not stay informed. All I'm saying is to be intentional about how you're coming to the news, right? Because if you're depleted and exhausted, you're not going to be useful to anyone in your life, especially yourself. So listen, everyone has their own ideas about it. Some people want to read everything and know everything, but I would also ask that person, well, how effective are you in what you actually want to do in this life? So take it or leave it. This is my, experience over 2 decades, teaching for 2 decades. When women that I know start practicing this intentional start to their day versus the news, it really gives you energy and life and activation to be useful and to be of service and to be present versus reactive.
This is I love, been taking so many notes, copious notes. I'm like,
okay.
So those listening, there'll be show notes, all of this, because I really think, and I can say just from experience, it's night and day to start out with it feels like adrenaline pumping through me even higher. And it frankly, it spills over for me. I think I think we all have different levels of anxiety and that kind of oh my God, I've got this to do, overwhelm, like you were talking about. And I think this also, the morning habit, it's it tampers that overwhelm and anxiety. It kind of gives for me, and I'm excited to try this version. I've done different versions that I can say this makes a huge difference. It really, and it feels weird at first because my instinct to want to pull up my phone. I have one email that I get every day. It's from Notes from the Universe by Mike Dooley. Yeah. And I'm always I see the red heart and I'm I'm allowed to read that one because that's the one that actually is super positive. But I got to be honest with you. It is hard to pull that up and not scan the rest. And so I'm saying publicly for myself, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I get to my computer because it's waiting for me. I have plenty of other positive things to read. But as you were saying, I'm okay, pulling up that little quote, although I literally live for it Monday through Friday. I love Mike Dooley. I love those little things, those little notes. It gets me it's too sticky. It's it pulls me in. And I think, look, that's what we get used to, is getting addicted to the news, addicted to our email. And so I love what you're doing because it gets you out of that cycle.
Yeah, I another reason you and I are totally aligned. It is the first thing I read in the morning when I have my email open, but it's a bridge. It's just a bridge.
It's a bridge. Thing. Yeah.
So I'm actually doing a 21-day visualization challenge with Mike Dooley. It's a course actually, not a challenge. Oh. And so when I thought about it, I'm wait a minute, how am I gonna do the challenge? Because it comes via email. am I going to have to like get out of my bed, get my computer? That seems like a hassle. I just want to be able to open that, the email app and click on it. And then I thought, oh, I'm talking myself back into the email. And I realized when the email opens, it actually opens to a website page. So I just bookmark the website page and it's fine. All I have to do is go to my browser and open that page and poof, there it is. Like the next one is right there. I don't have to even go through the email anymore.
That's awesome.
So that was just, and so I totally get the whole universe thing, but I thought, okay, you know what? I just get to read it when I drink my coffee an hour later, like no big deal.
Yeah.
It's rewriting a habit that you can just like, I am powerful enough to change my habit. I'm good.
Yeah. That's a great affirmation too. Before we start to wrap, there's just so much that's aligned. I love, love, love your focus on women, on coming back home to yourself, rewiring your whole habit pattern. Anything else that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about? Anything that's there for you or words of wisdom? I always like to ask this because there might be something that I forgot to ask or that just feels like, what I call a heart flare. Like you're like, I just want to share this. So I wanted to ask, is there anything else that you feel like is right there to share?
Let me ask my heart.
Love it.
I guess what I'm seeing and hearing is this reminder to trust yourself so deeply that that's what I want for you. I want you to say yes to this, no to that. That piece of what she said worked for me. That piece, not so much. I don't care. Like, how do if you could start to navigate from your own inner GPS, you become I just posted this recently. A woman who knows herself is a dangerous force, powerful and dangerous, because she's not falling for it. She's got her own inner axis of knowing. Not that she's inflexible, not that you become some rigid version of yourself, like this is my way or the highway.
Yeah.
You just, I don't know, the more I've stepped into, here's an interesting thing that I think people get backwards. The more I own my power and my voice and speak up for myself, you might think that the more you do that, you have to confront people so often and you become this like, this is me and that's it, take it or leave it. I actually found the opposite.
Yeah.
And this makes me really emotional because I think some of the relationships in my life I thought were going to be better got worse for a little bit in some ways, got really frustrating because I could no longer tolerate what I disagreed with.
Yeah.
But I think that's like when you start a process of spiritual awakening or processing, you kind of go into the deep end for a while, but then you come back. And now that I'm so deep into it and so in it, I find it so much easier to say, I'm sorry, or I was wrong.
Yeah.
Or how do you feel about that? Like, I almost don't have to defend myself at all.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a gift. How much energy do we spend controlling other people, trying to change other people, defending ourselves because we don't fully believe it, right? Yeah. So for me, like the more I got into my own, like, I don't really care if you agree. I love you. I don't need you to agree with me. And I think that's a gift to them too. And so really release this energy about fighting for your truth and just standing in it. And like you said, you just become that presence. Yeah. Anyone around me, I'm telling you, like the kind of feedback that I get now, it's like even just being around me can help people because I'm not here to change you. I accept you. And that has taken me a long time. I was a pretty judgy person and I can still have that judgy tendency. I think we all do as human beings, but I think now it's more about discernment versus judgment. Yeah. I just know it's yes for me, no for me. But again, I don't have to fight you. I honor you and your presence and what you believe. Yeah. It doesn't have to be what I believe and I shouldn't be what I believe. You don't have my life. Yeah. My life is a combination of 45 years now of experiences that shape me. Why would you have to do, you don't have to agree with me. So I think that's a big, big aspect. I think why people secretly don't write what they really believe in their journal because someone's going to find it. Yeah. Why they secretly don't speak up what they really, really feel because they think it's going to create conflict. And if someone disagrees, oh my God, like that's danger, right? But the more you start to trust yourself peacefully, the more you can trust other people peacefully too without having to change them. And life changed automatically. I don't have to change my son. I don't have to change my husband. I just get to show up and say yes to that, no to that. Like it's actually kind of joyful. right? I want to laugh more. I want to be joyful more. I don't want to be so serious all the time about having people transform in my life. Like, no, it's not my job.
Yeah,
Not my circus, not my
yeah,
job. Like,
that's so great. Yeah.
yeah.
Love that, Elena. Oh my gosh. So, there's a lot here, like so much wisdom, so much goodness.
Do I have a podcast? I just never stop talking.
No, I love it. I love it's so much goodness. It's so funny. The image I got is like a huge field of strawberries. Like there's just a ton of strawberries, which I actually, after might get some strawberries. I clearly something about, but it's just, you pick them and there's this big one and this small one, but they're all delicious. And so I feel like you just gave us a huge basket of strawberries.
Love that. I love strawberries too.
So thank you for the strawberries. Thank you for your heart speak for just sharing. This is really I think it's what do they say? I've heard it's simple, but it's not easy. And I know anyone really listening and who wants to have some change and start to feel connected to their higher self, these are tools that are going to do it, that are going to help you get there. And I just so appreciate you sharing so vulnerably and honestly and openly, and really acknowledge you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love talking to you. I know like the first time we talked, I think we talked for like an hour, just like could have kept going. So I'm
Yeah.
really honored to be in your space. Thank you so much for coming to mine yesterday. And I'm sure we'll continue to co-create some magic going in the future. And thank you to everyone listening for staying with it. I know I do talk a lot, but I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah.
So thank you for witnessing and receiving and taking what works and leaving what doesn't.
Awesome. Well, thank you, my dear friend. And thank you, beloved sacred soul, for listening and taking this in. I'm so honored that you're here. Excited to be back with you next week, and just appreciate your time, your heart, your soul, and doing what you can to be your Youest You. We love you, and we will see you soon. Mwah.